80-year-old Rose Carter walked slowly through the gates of Riverside Air Show. Her gray hair was tied back neatly, and she wore a simple blue dress with comfortable walking shoes. In her hands she carried an old black handbag that had seen better days. The morning sun was bright and thousands of people filled the airfield. Families with children ran around excitedly. Young couples took selfies with fighter jets in the background. Veterans wore their old military caps with pride. But Rose felt out of place. Everyone seemed so young, so energetic. She had driven 3 hours from her small apartment just to see one specific aircraft, the F-16 Fighting Falcon. Most people her age would be at home watching TV, but Rose had a very special reason to be here. As Rose walked toward the aircraft display area, a security guard in his 30s stopped her. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but this area is restricted," he said, barely looking at her. "General public viewing is over there behind the ropes." Rose looked where he pointed. The viewing area was packed with people, and she could barely see anything from that distance. "I understand," Rose said politely, "but I was hoping to get a closer look at the F-16. You see, I have some experience with—" "Ma'am," the guard interrupted, "I'm sure you're interested in airplanes, but this area is for VIP guests and industry professionals only. The general viewing area has everything you need." A younger staff member joined them. "Everything okay here, Mike?" "Just explaining to this lady that she needs to move to the public area," Mike replied. "You know how older folks get confused at these big events." Rose's cheeks turned red, but she kept her calm. "I'm not confused. I simply wanted to observe the aircraft up close." The younger man smiled in a condescending way. "The F-16 is pretty advanced technology. Maybe you'd enjoy the vintage aircraft display more? Those old planes might be more your style." "At your age," Mike added, "the walk to the VIP area might be too much anyway." Rose tightened her grip on her handbag. Inside were documents and photos that could prove exactly who she was, but these young men saw only an elderly woman who didn't belong. "I'll find my way," Rose said quietly, turning away from their dismissive faces. As she walked away, she heard one of them say, "Why do these old ladies always think they know about military aircraft? Probably saw Top Gun and thinks she's an expert." Their laughter followed her as she made her way to the crowded general viewing area. Rose squeezed between families and found a small space near the rope barriers. From here, she could barely see the F-16 demonstration area where pilots and technicians would showcase the aircraft's capabilities. She opened her handbag and pulled out an old photograph. It showed a much younger woman in a flight suit standing next to an F-16. The woman in the photo looked exactly like Rose, just 50 years younger. "That's a cool old photo," said a teenage boy standing next to her. "Is that your daughter or something?" Rose smiled. "Something like that." The boy's father overheard. "My son loves aviation. He wants to be a pilot someday." "That's wonderful," Rose replied. "The F-16 is an amazing aircraft. Very reliable and versatile." The father looked surprised. "You seem to know a lot about it." Before Rose could answer, the announcer's voice boomed across the field. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Colonel James Martinez in the F-16 Fighting Falcon." Rose watched as the sleek fighter jet appeared in the sky. The pilot performed incredible maneuvers, loops, rolls, and high-speed passes that made the crowd cheer. But something unexpected happened. As the aircraft came in for a low pass, Rose noticed the pilot waggling the wings in a specific pattern. It was an old signal, one that very few people would recognize. The teenage boy next to her was filming with his phone. "Did you see that? The pilot did something weird with the wings." Rose's heart began to race. She pulled out another item from her handbag, an old military ID card, yellowed with age. The father next to her glanced at it and his eyes went wide. "Wait a minute. Rose Carter. That name sounds familiar." He pulled out his phone and quickly searched something. His face went pale as he read. "Oh my God," he whispered. "You're the Rose Carter. The first woman to fly the F-16 in combat." Word spread quickly through the crowd. People began turning to look at Rose, whispers growing louder. "That's Rose Carter. The first female F-16 combat pilot. She flew over 200 missions." A veteran in the crowd pushed forward. "Ma'am, are you really Captain Rose Carter? The one who saved Bravo Company in Iraq?" Rose nodded quietly. "I was Lieutenant Colonel Carter when I retired." The veteran's eyes filled with tears. "Ma'am, I was in Bravo Company. You saved my life and 37 other soldiers that day. We were surrounded, outnumbered, and running out of ammunition. You came in alone against 6 enemy positions." More veterans began gathering around Rose. Each had a story about missions she had flown, lives she had saved, or how she had inspired them to serve. She broke the sound barrier on her 18th birthday. First woman to achieve ace status in an F-16. She designed training procedures we still use today. Up in the cockpit, Colonel Martinez had been monitoring the ground radio frequency. His ground crew was reporting something unusual happening in the crowd. "Tower, this is Viper 1, he radioed. "I'm hearing reports about Rose Carter being in the crowd. Can you confirm?" The tower controller came back immediately. "Viper 1, that's affirmative. We've got multiple confirmations. She's in the general viewing area, Section Bravo." Colonel Martinez couldn't believe it. Rose Carter was his childhood hero. He had joined the Air Force because of her story. Every F-16 pilot knew about her legendary missions and her contributions to air combat tactics. Tower, requesting permission to deviate from the demonstration pattern. "Viper 1, you're cleared for deviation. What's your intention?" "I'm going to give a proper salute to a legend." The F-16 suddenly broke from its planned route and headed directly toward the crowd. People watched in confusion as the aircraft approached at low altitude. Then Colonel Martinez's voice came over the public address system. "Ladies and gentlemen, I have just learned that we have a very special person in our audience today. Lieutenant Colonel Rose Carter, United States Air Force, retired. She was the first woman to fly the F-16 in combat and one of the greatest pilots in Air Force history." The crowd turned to look at Rose, who was now surrounded by dozens of people. "Colonel Carter," the pilot continued, "you inspired me to become a pilot. You inspired thousands of us. This pass is for you." The F-16 roared overhead at minimum safe altitude, then climbed straight up in a spectacular display. As it climbed, the pilot performed a victory roll, the traditional salute to honor a fellow aviator. The crowd erupted in applause. Veterans saluted. Children cheered. People were crying and taking pictures. Within minutes, the air show commander, a two-star general, was pushing through the crowd toward Rose. The same security guards who had turned her away were now helping to clear a path. "Colonel Carter," the general said, saluting respectfully, "I am deeply sorry for how you were treated today. Would you please join me in the VIP area? I believe there are several thousand people who would like to thank you properly." Mike, the security guard who had dismissed her earlier, approached with his head down. "Ma'am, I had no idea who you were. I'm so sorry." Rose looked at him kindly. "You didn't need to know who I was to treat me with respect. But I accept your apology." As Rose was escorted to the VIP area, the crowd parted respectfully. Many people reached out to shake her hand or just touch her arm as she passed. The air show organizers quickly set up a microphone on the main stage. Rose found herself standing before 20,000 people, something she had never expected when she woke up that morning. "When I first flew the F-16 45 years ago," she began, her voice strong and clear, "many people told me that women didn't belong in fighter cockpits. They said we weren't strong enough, fast enough, or brave enough." The crowd was completely silent. "I didn't argue with them. I just did the job. I flew the missions, protected our troops, and came home safely. Every time." She paused, looking out at the sea of faces. "Today, I was told I didn't belong near the aircraft I flew for 25 years. Not because I was unqualified, but because I looked like someone who wouldn't understand." Some people in the crowd shifted uncomfortably. "But you know what? Age and appearance don't determine what someone knows or what they've contributed. Every person here has a story, has knowledge, has something valuable to offer." The applause started quietly, then grew thunderous. "To every young woman watching who dreams of flying, who dreams of serving, who dreams of doing something they're told they can't do, remember this. Your worth isn't determined by what others think of you. It's determined by what you do, how you serve, and how you treat others." After her speech, Rose was invited to participate in the F-16 demonstration. She sat in the cockpit of a static display aircraft, explaining various systems to fascinated crowds. Young girls pushed to the front, their eyes wide with wonder as Rose explained how the controls worked, how to read the instruments, and what it felt like to fly at Mach 2. "Flying isn't about being fearless," she told a group of teenage girls. "It's about being afraid and doing it anyway because it's important." Parents lifted small children so they could see over the crowd. Boys and girls alike hung on every word as Rose shared stories of aerial combat, rescue missions, and the brotherhood of pilots. As the day continued, Rose met dozens of current female pilots, many of whom told her she was the reason they had pursued aviation careers. "Colonel Carter," said Captain Jennifer Walsh, a current F-16 pilot, "I have your picture on my wall at home. You showed us it was possible." "No," Rose replied, You showed yourselves it was possible. I just went first. A young maintenance technician approached shyly. Ma'am, I'm working on my pilot's license. Do you have any advice? Rose smiled. Study hard, fly safe, and remember that being a pilot isn't about the airplane, it's about the mission. Always focus on bringing everyone home. As the sun began to set, Colonel Martinez approached Rose after landing his aircraft. Colonel Carter, he said, removing his helmet, it's an honor to meet you. You're the reason I became a pilot. And you, Rose replied, are the reason I'm proud to have served. Watching pilots like you reminds me that the Air Force is in good hands. They talked for an hour about flying, about changes in tactics and technology, and about the future of air combat. Despite the 50-year age difference, they spoke as equals, two pilots sharing their love of flight. As Rose prepared to leave, she was surrounded by well-wishers. Veterans thanked her for her service. Young women asked for her autograph. Children wanted pictures with her. The same teenage boy who had seen her old photograph approached with his father. Mrs. Carter, he said, my dad told me about everything you did. I still want to be a pilot, but now I know it's about more than just flying fast planes. What's it about? Rose asked. It's about serving others and never giving up, even when people say you can't do something. Rose smiled. Now you're ready to be a pilot. As Rose walked to her car, she reflected on the day. She had come to see an aircraft she had flown decades ago. She was leaving as a recognized hero, but more importantly, as someone who had inspired a new generation. Her old handbag now contained dozens of business cards, phone numbers, and invitations to speak at schools and air shows across the country. But the most precious item was a hand-drawn picture from a 7-year-old girl named Emma. It showed a woman in a flight suit standing next to an F-16, with the words, "Thank you for showing me girls can fly," written in crayon. Rose carefully placed the drawing in her handbag next to her old photographs and military ID. As she drove home through the desert twilight, F-16s from the local air base flew overhead in formation, a final salute to the woman who had paved the way for all who followed. The invisible old woman had become visible again, but she had always been there, carrying the sky in her memories and inspiring others to reach for it themselves. Sometimes the most powerful response to being overlooked is simply to be who you've always been. Legendary. Rose Carter had done exactly that, one flight at a time, one student at a time, one inspired young pilot at a time. And now everyone knew it.